Well, well, well. Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, again, Sunday, November 22nd, 2015. Yep, it's the afternoon. I was itching, just trying to get catch up, I would say, but it's all right. So, gonna be doing a few more articles here, which is interesting, international and Florida related, and of course, free speech in colleges. So I think it's very essential. So, as I said in unsequential order, it is raining outside, if you can hear it. And it's that time, but you know what? At least it keeps it cool. So I can't complain at all. Well, the first thing I want to be talking about came from Sunshine News, State News exactly, Sunshine State News. And it's entitled, under politics, of course, is NRA, Republican reps killing stand your ground bill, betrayal to Florida gun owners. It is by Allison Nielsen. And as it says here, the House committee killed off a bill, shift the burden of proof in stand your ground earlier this week, and the National Rifle Association isn't too pleased with the committee calling a 6-6 tie vote a betrayal to law-abiding gun owners. The legislation, sponsored by Representative Dennis Baxley, Republican from Ocala, would shift the burden of proof for standing ground cases and give defendants more protection from prosecution by requiring prosecutors to prove beyond a reasonable doubt whether the defendant is entitled to immunity at a pre-trial hearing in order to disprove a claim of self-defense immunity. The bill's swift death in the House committee drew fire from the NRA, which slammed several Republican state representatives voting against the bill. An email sent to members, longtime lobbyist and former NRA President Marianne Hammer singled out Criminal Justice Committee Chair Carlos Trujillo, Republican from Miami, for orchestrating a betrayal to gun owners, Representative Baxley, and the legislative process itself. During the meeting, two amendments were offered by Representative Dave Kerner, Democrat from Lake Worth, filed at the last minute in an effort to send the bill to a swift death. Kerner's amendment would have eliminated the financial penalties for prosecutors should a defendant successfully have their case dismissed by a judge, and defendants would also have to show a preponderance of evidence supporting their claim to stand your ground. Both Trujillo and Representative Charlie Van Zant, a Republican from Keystone Heights, joined with four Democratic representatives to vote in favor of the two amendments, while two other members of the committee, Representative Chris Latvala, Republican from Clearwater, and Ray Pillen, Republican from Sarasota, were allegedly asked to walk out of the meeting before the votes were cast. Interesting there. Without Latava and Pillen's support, the bill's amendment passed, and when it came time to vote on the bill itself, neither showed back in the room, and the vote ended in a tie. There are no legislative tiebreakers, so if the bill voted is tied, it is essentially dead. Kerner acknowledged after the meeting that the amendments would have severely gutted the legislation had it not been killed off. It is important to recognize and remember the committee members who are loyal to the Constitution and your right of self-defense, as well as the betrayers, read an email from the NRA. The NRA's harsh push against Trujillo and Van Zant could set the tone against two lawmakers for future proceedings, since the pro-gun group heavily backed the legislation. The bill's future is dim, but is not totally crossed out just yet. There's possibly the legislation could be revived in the House and thrown into a package of different bills and ultimately passed, though it would be difficult to reach that point. Regular sessions begin in January. It is a little bit, I would say, in good faith, disappointed. Not angry, but a letdown. I always believe self-defense is righteous, whatever of your gender, skin color. I'm not call race, because we're all part of the human race. National ethnic or national background. etc. Sometimes you have to expect that. That's just part of politics. However, human nature, natural born rights, basic rights, Article 1, Section 2, all of our natural born rights are considered inalienable. Even in Chapter 776, on justifiable use of force, as part that would have been part of that in that chapter, talks about forcible, defense of civil action for damages and all that. I'm going to add that too with the with this link, and plus the stand your ground gives you how the Times give its pros and cons, because the truth of the matter is is written and documented by human beings. You have to really look at everything thoroughly, because sometimes they claim a case like I would say George Zimmerman case on the horrific incident that happened with him and the late Trayvon Martin. People say, well, stand your ground, we gotta get rid of it, and Mr. Zimmerman never made that motion because it was never on his feet, but rather his back, which is considered classical self-defense. And I would say, based on that particular bill that got ejected for the time being, it would have probably been added onto, in my perspective, chapter 776.032. So you can really all read this a lot more on the statute because or the chapter, because it's essential that everyone needs to know what right for self-defense is and justifiable use of forces in the state of Florida. And because sometimes it does cost money, people are real tight-strapped on cash, and that's why there's now other organizations that have like an insurance policy that if you ever get into those situations, Lord willing, you'll be ready. It's called U.S. Shield. I guess name of one group. I might just add that to the memo as well if I see it. And that's to me or the USCCA is one of those two things. I'll have to really look into it. If I do, I will add it to my Spreaker page under this title. But like I said, it's disappointing, and I'm expected to have it come back again. That's what you do. You gotta be strategic. You gotta be methodical. That's what movements are about. You win some, you lose some. I can't go around and have a temper tantrum on this because a lot of things are happening, my friends. So a lot of stuff is happening, but the truth of the matter is people need to stay focused, pay attention, and make sure the transformation year of 2016 will benefit all of us, including that live in the state of Florida and beyond. Things are making an impact, by the way. That's how it goes. Positive things are changing. They try to make tougher gun laws, and people are fighting back. Says hell no. Prove to me that the police are obligated to protect me as an individual. And that's how I really look at these things. And what's interesting too, on the Tampa Bay Times, on Stand Your Ground, people said it was racist. They did an investigation on here on June 4th, 2012, race complex rose, and it's pretty brief. A Tampa Bay Times analyst shows that people who claim self-defense after killing a black victim are more likely to go free than those who killed a white victim. So it is so it may have its pros and cons, but definitely everyone should read these links with this particular article because you'd be surprised. All right? That's why when people say we got to get rid of standing ground, we got to get rid of self-defense, you tell them, butt out. You ask them, prove to me the police are obligated to protect an individual. If they say protect and serve, they lost. Sovereign immunity and tort liability. Just look that up. I know a lot of my listeners have done it, and I thank you for it. And sharing it with many others. If you hear the raindrops, yep, it is raining. I'm in my little camper, and it's called technically a mobile efficiency. So I'm very happy about that. And like I said, even how people don't even know about the law and how they fail. Oh, stand your ground, don't even know what it means. So that's what I tell people. Don't be ignorant. Information's out there. Even individuals like you, even myself, is sharing this. So definitely study these facts before jumping the gun or hang out with a bunch of lobbyist groups that want to get rid of your right for self-defense and go, yeah, be part of the herd conformity, because that would be completely unacceptable in my realm. So absolutely observe responsibly. And like I said, I'm not angry, but very disappointed. But gotta keep plugging away on all of our freedoms within the U.S. Bill of Rights and Article Declaration of Rights in the state of Florida. All right, next one here came from the Associated Press, and this one's entitled, came out today, by the way. This one's entitled Free Speech College President. Defend Importance of Free Speech. This is by Michael Malia. And as it reads here, as a debate about race and other social issues flare on campuses, college presidents are increasingly intervening to draw a line when cultural sensitivity conflicts with freedom of speech. At schools including Yale, Williams College, and Wesleyan University, leaders have in recent weeks taken steps to assert the importance of free expression of ideas, even those that some might find objectionable. School president rejects critics' portrayals of today's college students as coddled and overprotected. But some say students arrive in need of help learning to engage others with contrary, opinions, and their responses to barriers that go up around some discussion. They say they strive to keep conversations going, often reminding students that a commitment to free speech is a part of building an inclusive campus. At Williams, a liberal arts school in Western Massachusetts, President Adam Falk expressed frustration when the student group last month canceled a speaking invitation for writer Suzanne Venker, a critic of feminism. Oh my goodness, she's criticizing. I'm offended. Picking up from a theme from a convocation addressed earlier in the semester, he wrote to the campus community that learning cannot occur without exposure to a wide range of ideas. I think that our students probably more than than previous generations come to college having been marinated in a media environment that does not foster productive conversation across disagreements. Falk said in an interview that it means, and even more important, that colleges find ways to work with students, to teach them that, and to model that for them. A recent wave of campus protests nationwide has brought new attention to the issue, with some civil liberties advocates threatening that it will erode free speech. See, I don't call them civil liberties. I don't call them, my liberties are never civil. It's my natural born right. I don't need government to tell me what to think or how to speak, as long as I'm not violating or threatening anyone by any means. I said any twice in one sentence. The protests, including those that led to the ouster of the University of Missouri president, also have added to the pressure on presidents to be responsive to students' demands. Up yours, glam boys and glam girls. But institutional leaders say there's nothing new for them to navigate free speech conflicts, with more cropping up with this generation, in particular on campuses that are generally far more diverse than their communities at home. Wesleyan President Michael Roth wrote a piece defending free speech in September after student government moved to cut funding for the student newspaper over an op-ed piece on the Black Lives Matter movement. In an interview, he said the fact that some do not value free speech above all things, it is not the sign of a problem, but rather reflects one of many continuing debates on a diverse campus. As president, I think it's pretty simple, Ross said. You want to keep the conversation going so that you can learn from other people's views. But you also want to make sure you're learning and not just spinning your wheels. Absolutely. Still, Roth said he was asked this week by students, how how he could defend both the student newspaper and students protesting racism. A similar debate has played out at Brown University, where President Christina Paxson criticized the student newspaper over columns that editors themselves deemed racist after they were published, while some faculty members said the administration's actions suggested it wants student editors to suppress all opinion pieces that could be deemed offensive. Others have argued that calling out racism does not encroach upon freedom of speech. At Yale, the question of speech loomed over protests by students calling for a more inclusive campus after some seized on a residential college administrator's defense of stereotypical Halloween attire, such as Native American headpieces. Yale President Peter Salovey promised changes this week, but insisted the university work does not conflict with his commitment to free speech, which he said is unshakable. Falk said all college presidents are seeking the best strategies to keep people on campus engaging with each other productively. Any gathering of college presidents, no matter what the topic is, turns into a conversation about these issues, he said. I am what to say for sure. I am proud of supporting free speech, whether it's in the U.S. or state constitutions. It is essential, natural, and people try to shut me up is invalid, null and void, and potentially treasonous. Some of these students are complaining about certain things. They get offended. So what? If it hurts others or makes threats, I'm going to kill them. That's a whole different ballgame. But criticism is the right thing to do. Criticism is freedom of speech, regardless. Those rights are enumerated. I speak my mind at some of these rallies in the past. I know how to use it, get under their skin, but you know what? They can't tell me, arrest me for calling them out. I don't use threats. I don't need to call them names or damn their families. I go on principle. And people want to dress up in Halloween on certain attire, and they say, "Oh, it's racist." It's like all these rhetorical vocabulary are being diluted. It's pathetic. The students need to grow up, have some testosterone of courage in their blood. You're gonna get offended on little things. I'll tell you one thing for sure. You think that's bad? Go to other places that don't have free speech. They got their heads chopped off, they got hanged, or being life in prison. You don't tell us, to anyone, how to think. You don't tell me that. I dare you tell me don't speak that way. I'll say piss on you. And I digress. So, I did a little experimentation. I'm still learning how to use the Spreaker app, and it came out pretty good. So, it's a video I'm going to add to this link about Does Free Speech Offend You, which is by PragerU, or Dennis Prager. Even though he's a conservative, I've seen him speak in the past. Like, I've seen some of the shows. I'm pretty observant, but I have to say, they are spot on when it comes to Does Free Speech Offend You. So, I'm going to put this out. You can make your own judgment. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to add the link to it. So tell me what and you can just check it out for yourselves.
Freedom of speech, the ability to express yourself. It's a cherished idea, as well it should be. Most of us who live in liberal Western democracies think of it as a basic human right. People have fought and died for it. But now we may be in danger of losing it. The threat is not coming from without, from external enemies, but from within. A generation is being raised not to believe in freedom of speech, but rather that they should have freedom from speech they dislike. This is a threat to both pluralism and democracy itself. We see this in Europe, where sensitivity-based censorship attempts to ban anything deemed hateful or even just hurtful, and to ban criticism of religion, especially Islam. But the United States, despite its strong constitutional protections in the Bill of Rights is far from immune from the rising trend of suppression of speech, or what is sometimes called political correctness. This is especially true at America's colleges and universities, the place where our future leaders are educated and where you'd expect speech to be the most free. Highly restrictive speech codes are now the norm on campus, not the exception. According to a study by my organization, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, 54% of public universities and 59% of private universities impose politically correct speech codes on their students. And thanks to recent Department of Education guidelines, 100% of colleges may adopt speech codes in the coming years. How bad is it? At a public campus in California on Constitution Day in 2013, a student who also happens to be a decorated military veteran was told he could not hand out copies of the Constitution to his fellow students. The objection from the university was not ideological. It was out-of-control bureaucracy imposing limits on speech. That same day, another college student in that same state was told he could not protest NSA surveillance outside of a tiny free speech zone, an area that comprised only 1.37% of the campus. Months later, college students in Hawaii were told both they could not hand out the Constitution to their fellow students and that they could not protest NSA policies outside the school's free speech zone. FIRE took these colleges to court, but the fact that we had to shows you how bad it has become. Recently, students and sympathetic faculty have joined forces to exclude campus speakers whose opinions they dislike. At FIRE, we call this disinvitation season, although the season lasts all year round. Since 2009, there has been a major uptick in the push by students and faculty to get speakers they dislike disinvited. These speakers have included former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, the Somali-born feminist and critic of Islam Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and the director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. And that's only the obvious part of the disinvitation problem. Few conservative speakers are invited to speak at colleges lest they have to be disinvited later. The newest threat to speech comes from so-called trigger warnings, alerts that warn students that they are about to read or hear something that triggers a negative emotional response. A 2014 New York Times article cited the example of a Rutgers student requesting trigger warnings for the classic American novel The Great Gatsby because it, quote, possesses a variety of scenes that reference abusive, misogynistic violence, unquote. Recently, Oberlin College attempted to institute a policy that heavily encouraged the faculty to avoid difficult topics and to employ trigger warnings as a means of making classrooms safer. Safety has been watered down to essentially mean the right to always feel comfortable. New demands for trigger warnings are popping up on campuses across the country. Add in popular academic theories that encourage students to scrutinize speech for microaggressions, any statement that might be construed as racially insensitive, classist, sexist, or otherwise un-PC, and it's clear that campuses are teaching students to police what they say. This is precisely the opposite of what is needed. Our society needs candor, and it needs freedom of speech, not freedom from speech. Intellectual comfort is not a right, nor should it ever be. Not if we want freedom of speech. Let's just call it freedom to survive. I'm Greg Lukianoff, president of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education for Prager University.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel, click here. To help keep our videos free, donate here.
Yeah, well, sorry for that little ad, but you know what? It is still, even though it's Dennis Prager, like people say, oh, he's a right-winger, conservative Republican, but you know what? In this aspect, this particular subject, they were right. That's how I look at things. And it's why I tell people about free speech. Anything in the Bill of Rights stands for government keep out. And to all those tyrannical sympathizers out there, You don't trespass on my rights. Don't like it? There's plenty of other places you can go. Deep down inside, you know I'm right. Okay, the next one here came from the Yorkshire Post, and this one's entitled by Gwen Dyer, "This Migrant Crisis is Only a Warm-Up for the Main Act." And it's interesting, they try to use global warming. And as it says right here, wow, this is archive. Interesting. And this one here says here, it says September 22nd. Well, what the hell, we'll just read it anyway. It says here, global warming means flow of refugees will turn into a flood over the next 2 decades. The sheer dithering cluelessness of the European Union's leaders faced with an unexpected surge in the number of migrants seeking refuge status in EU countries, challenging on all previous definitions of incompetence. A new standard has been set. All of a sudden, in July, mainstream of refugees arriving in Europe switched from the trans-Mediterranean track out of the Libya to the Aegean Sea, where crossing from the Turkish coast to the Greek islands just offshore is less than 1/10 as far. People are drowning on this Aegean route too, but far fewer of them. They won't stay. They won't. They don't want to stay in Greece, of course. And although Greece is part of the Schengen area, which abolishes border controls between most EU members, has no common border with any other Schengen member. Migrants wishing to claim refugee status in some richer EU country must therefore trek on up through the Balkans, seeking to reach some other Schengen country, like Hungary or Slovenia. They don't want to stay in those countries either, but once they are in any Schengen country other than Greece, can travel on freely to their real destinations, usually Germany, Sweden, or France. Or at least they could until about 2 weeks ago, then panic started. Heading up from Greece, the migrants first reached Macedonia, not a Schengen country. It tries to protect its borders for a while, then realized they just wanted to cross Macedonia to let them all through. Serbia, also not a Schengen country, did the same, which delivered them to the southern border of Hungary. Hungary has been building a 3-meter high razor wire fence along its southern border to keep asylum seekers out, and used considerable violence against the mostly Syrian refugees at first. But then Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel, wearing her Lady Bounty cloak, announced that Germany would accept as many as wanted to come. So Hungary opened its borders and refugees surged through on their way to Austria and thence to Germany. That lasted previously 2 days. Then Merkel panicked at the numbers arriving in Germany and temporarily closed the border with Austria. So to stop refugees from piling up in Austria, Vienna closed the border with Hungary, and Hungary shut its borders with Serbia for the same reason. Hey, it's like a domino effect. Nothing daunted, the refugees stuck on the Hungarian border turned left and headed for Croatia, another Schengen country. Croatian Prime Minister Zoran Milanovic declared that the government was entirely ready to receive or direct those people where they want to go, which is obviously Germany or Scandinavian countries. He knew they really just wanted to cross Croatia to get into Slovenia or Hungary, which are Schengen members. But 24 hours later, Croatian government, shocked by the numbers that were coming, shut its borders too. Croatian Interior Minister Ranko Ostojic said his country was absolutely full and told the migrants, don't come here anymore. Stay in refugee centers in Serbia and Macedonia and Greece. This is not the road to Europe. Meanwhile, Hungary declared that it was extending its razor-wired fence to cover the border with Croatia as well, and Slovenia began to stop trains coming from Croatia to search for refugees. There will be a summit this week, so it's old news by the way, at which EU governments will try to come with a coherent common policy. But don't hold your breath while waiting for the good news. The EU probably will sort out eventually because the numbers are not really all that huge. Around 500,000 migrants, most of whom will claim refugee status, have entered the European Union this year, which is only 1% of the EU's population. It is not beyond the wit of EU leaders to work out legal ways to send false claimants' homes to settle refugees already in Europe and to strengthen the EU's external border controls. Some lasting damage may be done to the EU's ideas in the process, but for most practical purposes, life in Europe will return to normal for a while. However, this refugee crisis is the only rehearsal for the main event, which will probably arrive in 10 to 20 years in time. It will be driven by global warming, which will devastate agriculture in the Middle East and North Africa and produce a 5 or 10-fold increase in the number of refugees heading for Europe. This is not what might happen if the world governments don't make the right deal in a climate summit in Paris in December. This is what is almost certainly will happen if they don't make the right deal now. A considerable amount of warming is already locked into the system, no matter what we about the climate now, enough to produce a kind of refugee flow in the future. There is not the slightest sign the EU policymakers have taken this on board. If they are taken by surprise again, the European Union may collapse. So many southern European states. Gwen Dyer. Good grief. Love using climate change. That's a terrible sales pitch there, Mrs. Dyer. However, the refugee status in general, it's mostly war-torn nations. Hey, a lot of them came from where? Syria. Oh, yeah. And Libya. Libya, too. And Libya as well. War-torn nations. How's that got to do with climate change? Good grief. I love reading these archives now, and I just get a big chuckle. And, of course, the German Chancellor, Merkel, got a rude awakening, too. So that's what happens when you live in La La Land. You got to look at everything to a bigger picture. This is why what's going on now. They try to bring the refugees from Syria into the United States. And I'm not here to condemn these people. I'm just tired of seeing their countries, seeing their lands being destroyed, and only have the banksters the benefit and use us as piss ants. So, in all good faith, don't sell me your product there, Mr. Dyer, because I'm not buying your rhetoric. And we all know one thing for sure: it is part of the global of Rome agenda. That's what she should be putting out there, not global warming. Give me a confounded break. All right. Finally, this came out a while back, the 17th of November, and I've been going through some of my Twitter page. People I follow. And this is from the International Middle East Media Center News, or I'm EMEC. And it's entitled, Israeli Prime Minister Pushes for Control Over Golan After Oil Discovery. Interesting, huh? This is written by Celine Hagbard. As it reads here, the Israeli Prime Minister's visit to Washington last week included a meeting with President Obama in which the two discussed the status of the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israel invaded and occupied a Syrian territory known as the Golan Heights in 1967 and has maintained a military and civilian presence there ever since. But the Israeli claim on a territory that has never been recognized by the international community. Now, according to some analysts, the Israeli government has a new reason to secure their illegal annexation of the Syrian land: oil. Last month, AFEC, an Israeli subsidiary of the U.S.-based Genie Energy, announced the huge discovery of a huge reserves of oil in the region. The company's chief geologist in Israel, Yuval Bardoff, said the reserves could potentially hold billions of barrels of oil. AFEC's license due to do exploratory drilling was renewed by the Israeli government for 2 years in October, shortly after the finding of the oil reserves. But the land on which is oil is located actually Syrian territory. And despite the Israeli government declaring the oil in the licensing of 10 experimental wells, analysts say the discovery of oil in Golan may reignite the conflict between Israel and Syria over the control of the Golan Heights. Well. So, We all know that the criminal elements in the Israeli government are licking their chops and drooling over this. In Syrian territory, oh, great war's happening. So you know what? They're going to protect that all they can. I find this very disheartening because the Syrian people should benefit from this more than the criminal elements of the Israeli government. See, I say criminal elements, not Israel as a whole, because there are a lot of good people in that country, even that came from other places to live there. They don't like what's happening with their neighbors as well. So you gotta always see things a lot broader. But this is really intriguing. One of those days, my friends, is gonna blow back in their faces. And I'm not saying I hope it happens, but I expect it. And I would like to say to all those folks out there, make sure it won't hurt the people. So, very intriguing, I would say. Wow. And Golan Heights looks beautiful. So that's the whole thing. I'm expecting that conflict to happen anytime soon. And that is really it, my friends. Yeah, I was just in my blood. I was just trying to get a little productive here. So I just enjoy doing this. So, but like I said, thank you for listening to this episode. Plus, please feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, or you want to send me something pretty cool, would be great. But do me a favor, always use your comments with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and World Truth. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is number 3 is all together, at gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.